Thank you everyone for coming. I'll make a really short introduction to Katerina. She's not the first time with us here, it's the second time, and you probably read about her in the profile and in the event announcement, right? So Katerina grew up in Moscow. She finished the school at the age of 14. She studied in Moscow. She achieved three degrees, one of them is in business, right? In MIT, 5. Well, okay, I'm behind, 6. I'm really behind even reading.
Read that, like, read before I laugh.
All right. So the interesting part, she started her startup company while she was studying in MIT at the age of 23. It was acquired by Astro Digital here in California, where she is now heading the business development. Am I still there? No.
Yeah, most great.
Okay, so I don't want to take you off track. I'll let her to speak about her career and her past. And probably she will share with us the secret sauce, how she could achieve that much while she's still in her 20s. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's kind of weird. I was a very weird kid with a strange background. Yeah, well, first of all, I'm very, very excited to be back because, you know, that means that the last time didn't suck completely, you know, it just means that there was some hope. So I have a question for you. Who decided to listen to me for the second time? Who are here for the second time? Wow, that is a big cut. Feels even better. Thank you so much for being here again. And I hope I will not be, you know, a boring, repetitive speaker who's just, okay, let's start from the same paragraph once again. I was just asked, you do have a, you know, timeline for your talk, and we don't have a scripted talk. I have some structure here that will be here behind me, but I just want to kind of go with the flow and try to see what resonates with you guys and go with that, okay? So yeah, briefly my background, I grew up in Moscow in a family of engineers, as most people in Moscow grew up in. And I was kind of a weird kid, very passionate about everything. So I would go from like biology into nuclear physics, and it was just kind of going all the time. And I was always a little bit bored with, you know, just things that they would teach me in school. So I skipped several grades. And I ended up in university when I was 14. And then when I got into university, I realized that, you know, once I graduate, I will be too young to be taken seriously. So I probably need to get a couple more degrees since I have to like kind of burn my time until I'm, you know, looking a little bit more mature. So I'm just gonna accumulate several degrees. And I was curious about things, and, you know, I couldn't again skip grades at university. So I acquired some degrees, you know, started with computer science, then I did some economics, did innovation, management, then I was lucky to receive a grant, and I went to MIT. And I took ridiculous amount of coursework there because the grant covered all the course, like I could get as much as I could. And I could also cross-register at Harvard Business School and at MIT Sloan School of Business, and I could do both computer science and business. Like, woohoo, that's gonna be great. And I just, like, I think normal coursework requirement is 36 credits, and I one term I had like almost 100. So it was pretty intense. And then I quickly learned that whole startup thing, you know. In Moscow, it wasn't that, like, there were a lot of hipsters, people who were like doing some weird things and calling it a startup, but back at MIT it was real, you know. You would sit in like Kendall Square actually is a place with the highest concentration of startups in the world. Not Silicon Valley, it's like a small little square in the middle of Cambridge near MIT campus. And I was like everybody's doing that. I'm worse than everybody else, you know. I should try something. Had no idea what I was going to do. So there was a startup competition that is a pretty famous one. It's called MIT 100K competition. And I got into that competition and was like, oh my God, I have to figure something out. And it's a long process. It's almost a year. And so I had friends from aerospace. Like, I have no aerospace background, by the way. Have friends from aerospace, and I'm like, well, guys, we have to come up with something. They're like, you kidding me? There's no startup in aerospace. You know, it requires millions of dollars and decades of time. and you can't really like do something quickly, on the back of the napkin. It's not a thing. I'm like, okay, tell me what the problems are. And so I learned a lot of things about satellite technology and specifically satellite imaging, how broken that was. We were in the 21st century and, things were moving super fast, but satellite operators would still send satellite imagery to their customers on hard drives by DHL. And I'm like, look, this is not okay. And it was like, 6-7 years ago. So I started a company that integrated a bunch of sources of satellite data into one marketplace, helped navigate around different satellite data options, raise some money. Like all of that was happening while I concurrently was taking this like triple amount of coursework. And so I was also trying to raise money, being an immigrant, I couldn't really like raise capital from here. So I was trying to tap into the network in Europe, and I was flying across Atlantic every other week. It was great. I don't really remember that time. And this is basically when I started asking myself, what can I do about it? Because, prior to that, I was, I could grasp things pretty quickly, and I never felt like I was short of time. Things were kind of easy. But at a certain point, I reached this kind of weird place where I was like, look, I just can't. There's no time, and worse than that, there was no energy to actually get things done. And I actually learned that energy oftentimes goes first. Like you run out of energy, and even if you have free time, you just can't function. You can't think. And so I started looking for ways how I can address that. And most things, like so there were like a bunch of time management systems, so many books written about it, and so I decided to take a very, my approach, research all of that while starting a company, flying across Atlantic, trying to pass all the exams, and I quickly learned that most things just didn't fit. I think a lot of time management stuff is about just fixing your internal perfectionist, which is like just create a 20 list, and this is a priority list, and this is the secondary priority, and tag them and put them into projects, and those projects you categorize by something, and now you spend 2 hours of your time without accomplishing anything at all, and ta-da. And so it felt to me like a lot of those systems, they were not addressing the problem of lack of time. They were actually just creating more hassle without help. And so I stopped reading books on time management and started reading books on neuroscience, because ultimately that's the thing you want to hack. Our brain has certain limitations. You have to address those limitations, right? You can't really like jump over them by having a better to-do list. And so it was a very interesting moment where like an interesting revelation for me. So there are no perfect systems in this world. I'm not perfect, even though I try to pretend I'm not. And none of us are perfect. And no system is ever perfect. Like you guys are building software a lot. And software is never perfect. There are always bugs in it, even no matter how hard you try. But the interesting thing is that if you know what those bugs are, you can avoid them being triggered. So like if you know that this device has 20 buttons, but this red button doesn't work, if you press any of the 19 buttons, but not this one, then everything's going to be great, and the system is going to perform perfectly. It doesn't make the system perfect, but it will perform perfectly. So same applies to our brain. If we know how it functions and which buttons we should never press, or press at a particular interval, or whatever, then you can make it almost a perfect instrument. But you have to know what are your buttons. And the good thing is that, we're all snowflakes and all that bullshit, but our brains work in a very predictable way. And a lot of chemical processes that happen in us, they're well defined. So when you think of time management, when you think about success, when you think about goals, those things, they're all based on the same principles of how our motivation works, because all our motivation is triggered by a bunch of chemicals in our body. And they can only last in our bloodstream for so long. It's kind of not very romantic, but that's the truth of it. And procrastination has its certain roots because it's the mechanism that protects our body from doing too much. And we'll talk about that. I'll try to cover it. But The bottom line is you can make an imperfect system perfect by learning how it functions. And that was my kind of the whole idea, and this is what I was trying to focus on. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to start by talking about goals and just big goals and small goals, and why I don't believe in big goals, and why I dislike the idea of thinking big and dreaming big, because I think it's counterproductive. Then we'll talk about how I structure my goals into sprints. Some of you may have already heard of that. We'll talk a little bit about how do I structure my day to get the most out of it. But I want to spend most of our time today talking about energy, because I think it's first of all, I don't think that even those of you who've been there last time, I learned that people just, they kind of ignore that part. And so I want to talk about that and share some very specific tricks that I, and in regards to emotional hygiene, the way I put it, that help me, not die before the end of the day, when it's like 1 p.m. and you're like, oh my God, this day will never end, I can't function. So I suggest that's, just keep it as our agenda. I'll try to go fast because I want to share a lot with you. And I will probably finish in about 45 to 50 minutes from now. We'll stop, have some announcements. And those of you who are not totally bored with me, we can stay and have a Q&A. So that's fun. Agile life. That's actually, I'm writing a book currently that I was offered a contract for writing a book in Russia, and they offered the title Agile Life because, well, Agile is so cool, everybody buys this. Well, actually, I kind of like this idea because I believe that Agile Life is a very good metaphor for the life that we perceive as a life that is a series of experiments. The problem with big goals is that you, standing right here, having a mindset of you at this particular moment, assume what you want in 10 years from now, what you should want, what you potentially would want. And the problem is that you're most likely wrong. Those of you who are in software development know that if you try to, plan your product development for the next year, you'll probably make so many mistakes. You will build this product, but very likely once you get there and you ship this product and the customer sees it, like, oh my God, I don't need 90% of those features, but something that is super important is actually missing. And I think that a lot of people perceive their life not as a series of incremental experiments and improvements and like feedback loop, but as this big long marathon where you think that once you achieve this goal 10 years from now, you'll be happy. In the process, you're miserable. But the problem is that even if you reach this goal, you may find out that you no longer want it. I've met so many people who, getting all these ideas of what the perfect and successful life looks like from social media, from friends. They put so much energy and just life, basically sacrifice everything to get to this long-term goal, just to find out that was never their real goal. And they could have figured it out early on if they decided to take, short sprints-based experiments instead, and make like small, like little vectors. You may still be going in the same direction, but you can kind of be like navigating around things and adjusting your direction based on your feedback. The truth is that we don't know who we're going to be in 10 years from now. We change. Like, I'm going to change after this talk because I will learn something from you. And actually, the physical structure of my brain is going to change. So, it's just very, very stupid and kind of, irrational for us to believe that we can set long-term goals for ourselves. And so the idea of Agile life is applying Agile to our personal life and pretending like we actually can make incremental growth part of our personal development. So I pick 9-week sprints. So I define 3 goals every 9 weeks. And recently I decided that I'm keeping only 1 goal career related or financial related. The second goal is personal growth related, and the third one is relationships. So friends, family. And it kind of helps me balance things because it's so easy to get preoccupied exclusively with career. I was just sharing my recent experience. I went to Italy for a few weeks, which is insane. I'm like have a pretty critical role in a company that does a lot of things, and I just left the team for a few weeks, but I felt like I needed it. And I learned so much by visiting teeny little towns of Italy and seeing people who are not rushed to reach the next milestone, next round of funding, next career promotion, but they're just kind of like just leaving. And I'm not suggesting that's the only way of doing it, but it's kind of a striking contrast and a good way for us to remember that there are other things outside of career, even though it sounds crazy in Silicon Valley. So 9-week sprints, 3 goals per sprint, and make sure that those goals that you set for yourself, they are truly yours. Very difficult question to answer, but there are a couple of things you can do. Ask yourself why 5 times. Like, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. Why? Because I want to be, have more friends. And I'm just throwing things randomly. Maybe there is like some psychologists who can actually say that those random thoughts have some underlying meaning. But hey, I want to have more friends. Why do you want to have more friends? Because I feel lonely in the evenings. Why I feel lonely in the evenings? Because I have nothing to do. Maybe you're just bored. Like maybe like the whole goal of losing weight is actually not the goal. The goal is just not to feel bored. And again, maybe a silly example, but you get the idea. Ask yourself why several times so that you can get to the root cause of the problem. The other thing is actually a strategy suggested by Warren Buffett, which has lots of great strategies. And his idea is that oftentimes we have so many goals, and the problem is that the goals that are top priority, top 3 goals, they oftentimes compete to the 4th and 5th and the 6th goal. So it's very easy to distinguish not important from important, but when it is like important things for you and kind of important things for you, they're very easy to kind of mix up. And so his idea is that you write down 20 things you want to accomplish, and you pick 3 out of them, and the rest 17 becomes do not touch list because they're still important to you and you would want to do those things. And so in order to separate yourself from those goals, you have to kind of enforce it, because otherwise you'll be like, well, but that's kind of important too, it matters to you. Yes, it does. But you can focus on that in the next sprint. So kind of limiting yourself is a good strategy. And from the brain's standpoint, limiting like lots of options, always better. Our brain works like, the more opportunities are out there, the higher the survival potential is. So give it all to me. That's why, like long-term focus is so difficult. There's an interesting research, I just read about it recently. They were analyzing the attention span of students in lab, and they asked them to focus on only one task for as long as they could. And the attention span almost never, except for people who are active meditators, never was to about 8 minutes. So it's just so difficult to focus on one task. You have to have a very lab-like sterile environment where you have just one piece of paper and one task at hand, and it's still very, very difficult to stay focused. Our brain gets distracted. And that's why those of you who have tried meditation, you have to focus on your breath for 30 seconds, and it's so freaking difficult. It's so just think about it. Why is it the case? Because our brain constantly tells us, look, it could be like a tiger right behind your shoulder, and you're not watching. So you're just focusing on your stupid paper, and there might be a tiger. You'll be dead. You'll be dead. You have to look at the social media. It's gonna end so bad. So changing activity is actually a highly rewarded thing from our brain standpoint, because you're scanning the environment for potential changes. There is a new photo uploaded by your friend. What does it mean? It means you're staying with the group. From the perspective of your brain, this is great. If I'm socializing, my tribe is going to take care of me. I will not be alienated. I'm going to survive. My kids are going to survive. Great stuff. So Facebook, new information, scanning the environment, plus staying part of the tribe. So those things have great, make a lot of sense. So, you can't assume that you all of a sudden will decide, well, I'm better than that. I'm just going to focus on my work and nothing's going to distract me. No, that's bullshit. It's never going to happen. So, I kind of moved to the side, but the point, I guess you're getting my point. We have to follow what our brain is capable and not capable of, and long-term focus is tough. Just the way it is. Sprint goals, I think we've talked about that a little bit. I'm going to move and they're going to be very angry at me because I was supposed to stay here. So thinking of life as a series of experiments. Think of deadlines as a good thing because it pressures you. Again, from the psychological standpoint, I'm going to go back. From a psychological standpoint, it's a good thing because it creates a good pressure, emotional pressure. So deadlines actually are a healthy way of doing it. And also, make sure you have a reward. I like talking about that as there are two ways of motivating somebody. They can be represented by two carrots. One carrot is in front of you, and one carrot is behind you. So deadline and reward are kind of this two, like negative and positive motivation. So highly recommend that. Speaking about the day, you have set of goals. Now, how do I take the most out of my day? It's very, very helpful, and I've been recommending to all of my friends. I've been practicing it for quite a while. Is to do all of your priority things, and all means 3, not more than that, because more than 3 priorities means no priorities. Is to get it done in the first part of the day. Before lunch, you just get it done. So if there's like an earthquake, we live in an earthquake-prone area. After lunch, you actually completed most of the important things in your day. And it kind of like puts, pressure, so much less pressure on you because you have this 3-4 hours. Again, pressure of the deadline helps. And after lunch, you just focus on more routine tasks, meetings, and just really, really helpful. Really helpful. I also highly recommend dedicating and blocking time for rest and for family time, things that are kind of ignored by so many people. So many people think that you should, schedule in your calendar. Like if you open your calendar, probably you have like a meeting with this guy, an appointment with this, doctor, flight, blah, blah, blah. Everything else, your real work and your real life, they happen in between those appointments. And I think it's a little bit ironic that, real focused work is rarely blocked on the calendar. Really recharging energy, refilling activity is also not scheduled. So they kind of happen when they happen. So you schedule those things. I know what I'm doing on my weekend. I know how I'm going to recharge. I know that today I'm spending time with you. I have blocked this time. I know that. So you get my point. I also have like focus days or focus like times in the day when if you look at my calendar, it's blocked. It doesn't mean that I have a doctor's appointment or a meeting with my team. It means I'm going to get some important work done at that time frame. And it's really helpful. It's really helpful, and it feels like you're no longer running your life on somebody else's terms. You feel like you actually have some control in those little oases of your block time because no one can touch it. Things happen, sometimes you have to move things, but the general rule is that not all your calendar is available to the rest of the world. Only time that you choose to make available to the rest of the world. I very actively use Pomodoro technique. Who knows what Pomodoro is? Most of you do. So Pomodoro is a very simple principle. It's actually a kitchen timer in the shape of tomato. 25 minutes you work and you take 5-minute break because when you're working and you want to get distracted, and you will want to get distracted within 8 minutes, as we already talked. You can tell yourself, okay, 15, 20 more minutes, and I'll have a break. And I can postpone whatever, checking social media, sending a note to a friend, whatever. Those things can wait for those just few more minutes. So it helps you to kind of avoid procrastination, knowing that you will have a time allocated for procrastination. So just breaking your day into 30-minute intervals with 5-minute break does magic. Like do just 10 minutes of 10 times of this, of those Pomodoros, 10 of those Pomodoros, which is, only 5 hours of work. It's just so much work done. So yeah, give it a try. Some people say that it doesn't make any sense. It's just simple. Just give it a try for 7 days. You'll be surprised how much you get done. I tried it for the first time. I was like very skeptical, and then like, we talked already about multitasking and how it's like a very natural tendency for our body. So that's the nature of it. So you have to think of ways how you can prevent that from happening. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later in this presentation, but the bottom line is you have to structure your environment and your activity in a way that prevents your natural brain desire not to happen. You can't rely on your brain to do that because it's designed to act very differently. Yeah, so talking about procrastination, you have to acknowledge that it's very normal. That's the natural mechanism of your body to protect you from too much work. And also it's the status quo. It's for our body and for our brain, if we're sitting there, we are not hungry, it's warm and nobody's attacking us, it's good. There's no need to change anything. Long-term thinking is neocortex, and our limbic system, our ancient brain, is like kind of working sometimes against it. So our neocortex knows that, long-term planning, if I don't do this, I won't be able to get promotion, I will never buy a house in this crazy area, so no. We have to go and do things. But your limbic system says, look, we're safe and wonderful. This 1-bedroom apartment is great. I love it. And the thing is, your limbic system, honestly, is much more powerful. Like, our neocortex has been developing for just so long, and overpowering your limbic system all the time is a lot of work and a very conscious effort. So once you lose your focus, it will kind of sneak in and just be like, love this 1-bedroom apartment. So just be aware of that and don't ask for too much from yourself, right? A good way of like visualizing this whole process, and remember I was talking about the conscious effort of focusing. So many people call it willpower, right? Like, when you can force yourself to do things that you normally wouldn't do. Like, I would rather just like lay on my bed, eat a bag of Cheetos, but instead I'm gonna go and lift some weights in the gym. So this is called willpower. Go ahead and like kind of tell yourself that short-term gains are less important than long-term. Willpower. Many people perceive willpower as a very unique type of feature that some people have and some people don't have, and I just don't have it, so sorry. In our brain, willpower is a habit, and habit from its like structure is just a neural path in our brain. So like when we do something repetitively, our brain creates a shortcut, and the more often you do it, the easier it becomes. So when you think of willpower, you have like, you wake up in the morning, you can think of it as like in a game, you have like those energy points of your character, right? And imagine like, you go and you have to beat this monster, and to beat this monster, you need to use the super magic, and just use super magic, you lose like 50% of your willpower, and then you sleep and you eat some mushrooms and whatever, and it kind of recovers. Okay, mushrooms was like only related to game, okay? All right. But the same happens in real life. You wake up in the morning, you kind of, if you slept well, you're fully charged. And then you have to like get out of bed, and it's kind of cold outside, and you're like, eh. So you lose like 5 points. And then you're like, I have to go to gym. You don't want to do that. And to bring yourself to gym, you lose more willpower points. And then throughout the day, and then you have to talk to the colleague you hate, and you're like 30 points gone. And then you can't eat chocolate at lunch, and you just like by 1 o'clock you're like, just I don't want it. I don't want anything. And you just run out of your willpower points. And you can do several things about it. You can limit decisions that you have to make that require willpower points. If you don't have chocolate available on your table, you don't have to fight it not to eat it, right? Like just save it. If you go to gym every single day and you develop a brain pathway which makes it a habit, you brush your teeth every morning. It's not that you're like, oh my God, do I brush it or not? Oh my God, it's so difficult. You don't process it, even though it's like a little thing that is, mildly annoying that you have to do it. But my point is that if you repetitively do that, it no longer requires those willpower energy, right? So you save it. You can also sleep better. You can, we'll talk about energy a little more, but you can eat better so that, you accumulate it throughout the day. You can take naps. So I'm going to talk about my super naps strategy. So you can use different techniques to recover quickly. And that's all the magic of it. You can't say, well, tomorrow I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. It's not going to happen. You don't, it's like, it's the same as saying, tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lift 500 pounds. It will not. It will not. Your muscles are not prepared for it. And you have to build this muscle by doing repetitive actions every single day to strengthen it up. Nobody's born with six-pack. It's not a thing. Nobody's born with willpower. It's kind of a quality, similarly to muscles, that is developed throughout life by repetitive training, and that's all of it. That's all of it. And yeah, just be very gentle to yourself. A couple of tricks: combine useless and useful. It's a good way to save willpower when you're like, okay, I really want to listen to this fiction audiobook. You can also do a run, in gym, and you can like bundle it as in a way that I can only listen to this fiction book while running. So by doing this, you bundle two activities, and you can have like a list of activities you can bundle. Works pretty well. There's also a good thing which is called procrastination list. So I have a list of activities that I do when I feel like my energy is very low, but it's still kind of a nice thing to do. I have a list of saved articles that I want to read in Instapaper on my phone. So when I'm like, I can at least do something mildly productive. So just brainstorm some activities that you can do that are not super helpful, but at least you are not laying on the couch and looking into the ceiling of your one-bedroom apartment. Yeah, productive environments is another important thing. So as I mentioned, our brain is constantly looking for changes in the environment. So if your phone is next to you while you're working, if it's within even like, in your purse, within 2 feet from you, so you don't have to get up and get, you're gonna constantly scan it. There's a research, just the presence of the phone within reach distance, not even your phone, actually the researcher's phone, it lowers the concentration on a task and produces errors. Because we see the object and we know what this object is capable of, and our brain constantly it's like, bing, can we check it? Bing, can we check it? Bing, and like every ping we have to say no and lose energy and get distracted. So put your phone away, put it in another room. Like, not just silence it, because things will still happen. If you have stuff on your desk, like some tickets, some business cards, you may not notice it, because all these things, the scanning of the environment happens. Whether you want it or not, we'll never know. Actually, the interesting thing is that people who claim they are different and they are actually not prone to this phenomenon and they can do multitasking, they perform worst in those tasks because their lack self-awareness is just missing. So if you think that you're great at it, just saying. So productive environment is the environment that, because I think I'm great at it, so I just acknowledge that I don't know. And it's okay, because certain processes, like, you don't really know when your body produces insulin. Like, you don't notice it because we don't have a mechanism for us to track that consciously. So, yeah, that's the same idea. your body, your brain constantly scans for new information. Put it away. Clean up your desk. Actually, a good way is when you have a particular activity, change the place where you're sitting. So like I write a book in Starbucks because I know that when I'm like sitting at my work desk, I can't write a book because it's just like I have a context, and this context defines what I'm doing. So I just go to a different place, and this different place defines new context. So it sounds very silly, but it changes your productivity by like factor of 2. It's not something minor. It's a pretty substantial change. So clean up your environment and design your environment to be productive. And the final thing, which is very interesting, is people say that get started, just get started. Why just get started? Because all the willpower loss and like all the resistance, it happens within like the first like several seconds of the activity. So if you don't want to start writing some report, a super boring one, tell yourself, okay, I'm going to do it just for 1 minute. And if I'm going to hate it, I'm going to stop. But the interesting thing is that once you do it for at least 1 minute and you get some momentum, it kind of is very easy to keep on going. It's like, pushing a heavy object, it just has momentum. And so like play this game with yourself. Tell like, look, it's not a 2-hour report. I'm going to do it for 1 minute. And if it's going to be as difficult after 1 minute to keep on going, I'm going to stop and try it later today. But the truth is that you will dread starting once again. And since you already pushed it, it's going to be easier. So just give it a try. It works great for me. I hope that it worked for you too. Healthy habits. Again, habit is a pathway. It's just a highway in your brain. So it's easier to go on this highway than go to the side. It's a very much I'm not kind of making it up. Like if you look at the structure of the brain of a person who like swings a ball, professional sports player, he does that every single time. Like part of their brain responsible for movement and precise movement in particular, it evolves. There's more complexity in the network. We can't completely decipher it, what is in there, but we can still see that this part of the brain evolves in particular. So it's very, very clear, like London cab drivers, they have, part of, I think, hippocamp, I think is the part that is responsible for spatial awareness. That's the part that my brain completely lacks. I'm not sure it's even there. So yeah, that part is very well developed in people who do a lot of driving. So what does it mean? It means develop the highway. Highway can be developed by repetition, by not skipping more than twice. It's okay to skip to another highway once if you're forming a good habit, but if you do it 2 times in a row, it kind of rewires things really significantly. So if you're trying to get into a new habit of like, I don't know, going to gym every single morning, you can skip once, don't skip twice, otherwise you reverse progress, not only in your physical state, which may not happen after 2 times, but the effort required to do it next time is going to be substantially higher. Start very, very small, and this is very difficult for me because as you probably heard earlier, I kind of like going all in. So with habits, because the new pathway is so unused, if you again will try to lift 400 pounds, you will give up very slow, very quickly. So when I'm saying little, it means not going like some people. Okay, so I can't go to gym every single day, so I'm gonna start with like 2 times a day for an hour. No, I'm talking about like do 10 push-ups. That's it. So that level of habit. Or like in the morning, commit to put your sports whatever outfit on. You may not even go to gym later on, but just like that sort of habit and like distill it in yourself for like a few weeks. Make sure that becomes automatic. So it should be like so effortless that you can't say no to it. Like you can't say, I didn't have time to do 10 sit-ups. Like, of course you had time to do 10 sit-ups. So start super teeny small. And like improve it about 1%. And in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, that's gonna accumulate, like cumulative effect, powerful thing. And it's gonna have very, very substantial results. If you're gonna try to do it tonight or tomorrow morning, you will give up by next week, and in 3 years, you will be exactly where you are today. So very, very small steps, almost unnoticeable. Like, that's kind of the goal. So any changes, like maybe some of you will hear some of the suggestions today and say, okay, starting from tomorrow, I'm gonna have a completely new life. No, don't do that, please. Please don't do that. Each little suggestion, you want to implement time management stuff and have 3 priority tasks per day. Say, I will only have 1 and I will only have them on Tuesdays, and I'm going to start just with that. Or if you want to do, breaking tasks into Pomodoros, promise yourself that you will just do like 2 Pomodoros to start with, and you will do it for a few weeks. Just very, very, very small changes that are very easy to implement in your life. Define very clear rules, and more importantly, define plan B. Because at the point where you're like, let's use the example of gym. You decided you will go to gym every single morning, but now you're on a business trip. What do? You have to have a plan B. And the plan B could be, that you go to business trips, so you know that not all hotels have good gyms. So you just decide what type of exercise, have a very short set, you're going to do in this scenario. Having a clear plan B doesn't require you to make any decisions at that moment, because all the decisions were made upfront, and saves willpower. So you know what to do. So when you're trying to commit to a new habit, make sure that you also define what you're going to do in commonly happening, but uncommon in general situation. And we talked about skipping twice because it rewires a lot of things. Now we're going to go to energy section, and we'll start with sleep, and we'll talk about food, and then we're going to talk about environment and people. How are we on time? Good. Good. Yeah, I have 15 minutes. Yeah,
You're good.
Okay. Because I like talking, and sometimes I talk too much. So sleep is the absolute number 1 thing that I personally didn't know how to do until I turned like 25. Nobody teaches us how to sleep, and people presume they just know how to do it. How many of you have any like night lights in their bedroom? Okay. How many of you have an alarm clock that has a glowing light on them? How many of you go to sleep after 11:30? After 1 o'clock? Okay. How many of you wake up like effortlessly? Effortlessly, like just open the eyes, fresh and happy. Okay. How many of you use electronic devices for an hour before going to bed? Absolutely. All right, great. Okay. What?
Yeah.
Well, that's a question which I don't know how to answer. So I'm only trying to use my personal experience. That part has a big part of my personal experience. So yeah, I think you get the idea, but I will kind of summarize it. We have to sleep in a very, very, very dark place. So dark that if you stretch your hand like this, you can't see the outline. It's so important because our sleep cycle, it's like, actually the sleep cycle is the most phenomenal thing that I'm so surprised that I've never thought and read about it. And like, it's just so crazy that nobody talks about it. Maybe I just missed it. So like, if it's something that you already know, just raise hands and I'll stop talking. But the thing is, our sleep and our what is called biological clock is defined by our hormones. And the production of melatonin and the decrease of production of cortisol, it happens at a particular time throughout the day, depending on our light exposure. So light exposure is something that triggers the time when we get sleepy and the time when we get, awake and all that stuff. So typically in, natural conditions, it's very dark at night. Unless you're a, night hunter, you don't do anything, you sleep. After sunset, you sleep. And you spend a lot of time outside throughout the day, because it's nature. And interestingly, even if it's a cloudy day, the light in a cloudy day is much brighter in terms of the amount of light than in the brightest Google office in Silicon Valley. So what happens in our life is that we spend a lot of time inside throughout the day with limited light exposure. We're very lucky because we live in a very sunny place, but like I grew up in Moscow, and Jesus Christ, I haven't seen sun for like 3-4 weeks sometimes, in a row, and it was miserable. And I thought that I was just a slacker while I was actually just deprived of normal hormonal production. And then we go back home and we have bright lights in the evening. We stare at bright screens before going to bed, and our melatonin production is just fundamentally broken. And so what happens is that when we go to bed, instead of going into a normal sleep cycle, because sleep is not sleep. Sleep is not a universal thing. There's quality sleep and there is not quality sleep. And you may sleep for 8 hours with quality sleep and you will be fully recharged, and you can sleep for 8 hours with not proper hormonal regulation, and you will not at all be recharged. So I for some reason thought just sleep 8 hours, but it's not right. It's only part of the equation. If you're not ready to fall asleep once you close your eyes at night, if your hormonal production didn't start yet, that means for the first hour or 2 hours, all you're going to get is a very, very light sleep. In light sleep, there are several phases. There is REM and there is deep sleep. REM sleep is when your brain activity, basically there are 2 productive phases of sleep. One helps to restore the body. It's the deep sleep, which helps your immune system, repairs your tissues, blah, blah, blah. And there is REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, which helps to structure things in your memory, basically help you think and not go crazy and not get Alzheimer's too early. So when you just fall asleep and have a light sleep, the one that you sometimes get on the airplane, it's so noisy and everything, you're kind of asleep, but not really. You may sleep for 8 hours like this, but you will not get no recovery physically and no recovery mentally. So if you do not get there in the right time, first 2 hours you may burn without getting the right type of sleep. So you now have 8 hours of sleeping, but only some part of it is actual sleep. Now the other part is that deep sleep that is required for your body only happens in the beginning of the night. So it starts about 10, 11 o'clock, and you may get it until 1:30 to 2 o'clock. After that point, getting quality deep sleep is very difficult because of hormonal cycle. So, you can mess it up further and maybe you can get it, but typically if you go to sleep at 1 o'clock, you missed on your deep sleep, even if you're going to slip in until noon next morning. The other part is that you can't sleep, have a lack of sleep throughout the week and then sleep later on. Your brain cells are dead. The fact that you are going to kind of sleep more later on will not recover them. They're already done. And that was something that I never figured out. Actually, it's terrible for you when you slip in over the weekend, because if the structure of your sleep changes, your body has no idea what to expect from you. They have to stop producing cortisol and start producing melatonin at a particular time so that you can fall asleep more. And they know what to expect when you should wake up so that it stops melatonin production and starts cortisol, stops melatonin, starts cortisol production. And if you're doing it at a different time every day, or 5 days this, 2 days this, your body, then you have 2 weeks of hell knows what because it's vacation, and your body is just really confused and you're not getting good sleep. So there's no surprise that you wake up groggy. People have those alarms shining into your eyes, and you have those night lights, which is a constant stimulation, because when you close your eyes and it's light outside, even a little bit light, your eyes can track light. They still know. And that means you can't go into deep sleep levels. You just can't. If it's light outside for some reason, wear a face, eye mask. But that is so fundamentally, it changed my energy levels so much. I was like, why nobody taught me how to sleep? Why everybody thinks they know? It's so crazy. So sleep in a very dark environment. Make sure that you do not have bright lights for 2 hours before you go to bed. You can read books, but make sure that the light is kind of concentrated and the rest of the light is, minimized. Listen to audiobooks. Try to spend time with your loved ones. And they talk sometimes back to you. So it's really interesting, when you're not on Facebook first thing, before going to bed. And it dramatically changes the quality of your sleep. You feel better. Your immune system is really like, I was constantly sick, back in Moscow. I always have like some form of fever or whatever. Now I only get headaches from time to time. But like, I don't remember when was the last time when I had like, fever for a long period of time or anything, even though I travel and get, exposed to a lot of people in airports and things like that. So it really changes the game. Sleep, right? Wake up, go to bed at the same time. Wake up at the same time. Another thing that really helped me is Philips has a night light that before you have to wake up for about 30 minutes, it imitates sunrise. Mm-hmm. So it's like a light alarm. So let's say you have to wake up at 6:30 and at 6 a.m. it starts slowly to like turn the light on for you, and it actually has like a beautiful gradient. So it starts from a very red light, which is again good for you because red light doesn't trigger immediate wake up, and then it moves into the yellow light. So it really, like when I use it, and I don't carry it with me for business trips obviously, but when I use it at home, by the time the alarm sounds, I am so close to the light sleep. So it pulls me out of the deep sleep cycle that I'm like fully recharged. And like I basically just I wake up and like I open my eyes. And it's like, like awake. Awake, actually awake. Not like, oh my god. So that really makes so much difference, guys. So hopefully they would start paying me royalty or something, but not yet. So just a good advice. Yeah, so waking up early is pretty much as simple as that, and more consistency as soon as your body learns how to do it and learns what to expect from you, it becomes easier. Final thing is food before bed. I noticed personally, and then I learned about it from the scientific standpoint, when you eat fast carbs, so anything that produces insulin response, so it could be bread, it could be cookies, it could be like any sweet things, so any starches or sweets that your body with high glycemic index, any food with high glycemic index, it results in cortisol production, and cortisol and melatonin, they go like against each other. So you will wake up. You will wake up. Actually, like sweets is a way to wake up. Express recharge. If you need to nap, and actually I highly recommend napping when I have long, stressful day, when I feel like I need more of my day. I break my day into two parts by having a nap about 7 hours after I woke up. And now attention, it has to be no more than 30 minutes. Because if you sleep for 60 minutes, you will put yourself in the middle of a sleep cycle and you will be super groggy. So express sleep. Actually, some people, I'm not a coffee drinker, but some people recommend drinking not very strong, but light coffee, and then go to sleep, and it will kick in within 25 minutes, and you will wake up, so you will get the effect of a restoration during the sleep, and you will be super perky and really alert. So that's very important because I believe that afternoon naps were not for me because I would sleep for an hour and I will feel terrible. And I was like, why did I do that? Like now I just want to sleep for the rest of the day. And the truth is that because I was waking myself up in the middle of a sleep cycle. Great. So don't do that. 30 minutes. Actually, NASA is practicing that a lot, and they actually think that 24 minutes from the time you fell asleep is the optimal. So if you can track it, with some of the fitness trackers when you actually fell asleep, and then triggers the alarm in 24 minutes, that's optimal. Look, I just noticed that I usually fall asleep within 5 minutes, so 30 minutes total is great. Also fits within my Pomodoro framework. Okay. Let's talk about habits once again. No, let's talk about food. Nobody teaches us about food, really. Like, there are lots of diets that people follow, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not going to talk about like how to lose weight. I'm not an expert in it. But one thing I learned, and I actually have a very good friend who's my mentor and a person I'm very lucky to call a friend. He is an investor, and he is a founder of Millennial Pharmaceuticals. It's a company that was IPO'd for billions of dollars about a decade ago. And since then, he's been investing a lot in healthcare. And one day I met him for coffee, and he usually buys just water. And I was drinking tea, and I got myself a little piece of cake. And he's like an amazing guy and very polite. And he also is like is a PhD. He went to Harvard Medical School, so he's like he's an expert in all kinds of biochemistry that I'm not at all. And so he was sitting there next to me and was like, "Okay, why are you eating this cake?" I'm like, "I don't know, it's yummy." And he was like, "Well, you know what happens in your body, right?" I'm like, I mean, if I eat a lot of it, I'll put, it's lots of calories, so I may put extra pounds, but I'm just gonna, skip dinner maybe, or I'll work out extra, so I'll compensate for the calories. So it's okay, I'm okay with my weight. I like how I look, so I don't see a problem with it. He's like, yeah, I'm not talking that you're like not looking good or you need to lose weight. It's a whole different story. You know that, right? I'm like, no, I don't. I think that the person, if he's okay with his weight and his, his looks, and if sugar doesn't make them gain weight, then you just eat it, and it's mildly not nice for you, but nothing bad. There are worse things in our life. He's like, not really. And I was like, what do you mean? So I spent at this point like billions of dollars invested in companies that are trying to fight cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and the only thing that they should do is just not get cakes, and like 90% of those patients won't be there. And I'm like, wait, and he's like a very serious guy. He's like, there's no bullshit, and like, all those flashy things like, fat is bad, salt is bad, sugar is bad. Like, I always ignore that because, I never trust those people. But he has nothing to sell to me. He's a very knowledgeable guy. And so he stopped talking about that. But I came home and started doing research. Because that's what I do. And I learned some curious things that kind of just completely blew my mind. Thing number one is that calories are total bullshit. And like, I don't know how many of you heard about that. The calories, like, they're the most ridiculous thing ever invented. Because back in like 50, 60 years ago, nutritionists need a way to measure something in food. And they didn't have a lot of mechanisms to do that. So they're like, let's burn it and measure heat. And like, why? But our body is not a stove. Like, it's not how we process food. Processing food involves very complex hormonal things. And certain foods we can process, certain foods we can process in one way, certain foods we can process in a different way, and just burn it and measuring the amount of heat is like, it's kind of humiliating to our body in the first place. So calories in, calories out, all of this doesn't make any sense at all. There's a thing which has calorie content, which is called fiber. We can process it. It's like me eating a piece of wood. Even if I eat 2 pounds of wood, I will get no energy from that because we can't process it. I can eat some fat, like good, healthy fat, and my body will be able to use it throughout the day as a source of energy. Like, you're just starving, and you're going to drink a glass of sugar water. All this water will go into fat unless you're running a marathon. which is probably not the case if you haven't been eating for 2 days. So what it means is that certain foods are being processed differently. And sugar has a very, very bad reputation in that way because your body, when you get sugar, like we are not meant to process sugar. We just don't, our body doesn't know how to do it. And I will get how we connect it to productivity eventually. I'm not just talking about food for the sake of talking about food. But the point is that your body will immediately, raise cortisol level because it's massive stress for your body. It's pretty much death threat, like very high level of sugar. If your body doesn't decrease it, if it doesn't produce enough insulin, it's pretty much, it can result in you dying. So for your body, whatever it was doing at that point, it will stop doing it and focus on reducing the level of sugar, which is production of insulin, and putting the sugar into fat storage because there's no other place you can put it. Because you drink like a bunch of the sugar in a glass of water, it absorbs right away, it has to put it somewhere. So your immune system completely gone because it's focused on that. If you actually have a temporary inflammation, your hormonal system totally focused on that. And you, at the same time, your brain goes in the state of the sugar coma, where your survival is like, look, we don't want to write this report. We're here like almost dying in a way, after this bowl of pasta with, bread and a cake that you ate for lunch, that we're not focusing on any work stuff. We have an emergency. And that's pretty much what's happening. So previously I noticed that I would, like, after eating something like lots of carbs for lunch, I would feel like kind of like groggy afterwards. And that's a very obvious result of a sugar effect because it spikes my blood sugar and my body puts me in a sleep mode so that it can sort out things. I'm young, so it can still do those things, right? It can figure it out, but like as I age, it will decrease. But even though I'm young, it still needs me to slow down and not do anything too kind of energy consuming. Brain activity is energy consuming while it resolves the problem that I've just caused by this cake. So like I've decreased the amount of sugar that I consume probably like 20 times in the last couple of years. And I feel that I have so much more energy. There is a lot of interesting research. Do not drink juices, guys. Please don't drink juices. It's the same idea as cola, no different. And really avoid eating high carb foods, at least if you know that you need to get something done or when you're sick, because you're distracting the resources, mental or physical, of your body into processing that, producing insulin, and doing all kinds of difficult things for your body. So yeah, that's kind of a long story, but it really dramatically changed a lot of things. Again, because I was never interested in diets and like, oh my God, I was never like paranoid about my weight or anything. But this really impacted my quality of life. And apparently there are so many ways you can like implement low carb things. Even like, I learned how to make little biscuits with cheddar cheese based on almond milk, which is very low on carbs, and I can make them in the morning, and they're an amazing substitute for regular biscuits. And there are so many different things which you can do. You can make low carb granolas, you can make low carb chocolate. There's so many great things. And you still stay very energetic, very productive, and you don't damage your health. I also started doing another thing which helps me focus and also trains my willpower. It's intermittent fasting. Who heard about it? Yeah, it's kind of Silicon Valley, of course. When I give this talk in Moscow, I'm like, what? I was actually gave an interview to Russian Marie Claire in this April's issue about intermittent fasting. And I was like, this is the new thing. I think, and I'm like, people here are kind of already like done with it, Where's the new one? Biohacking, give me something else. So yeah, the idea is very simple. You try to limit your food intake to 6 to 8 hours per day. I can't do 6 yet, I do 8 hours. So I eat from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the rest of the time I don't eat at all. So like not even like a teeny little piece of, rice. So like nothing at all, just only water. And it gives your body time to recover, to actually focus on whatever it needs to focus instead of like constantly processing food. We're not supposed to be processing food all the time. And also, I've tried 24-hour fastings once a week, and they help me concentrate. Like actually, it's interesting how I get more focused during that time. It requires some practice, but give it a try. It really improves your well-being and improves your capacity to solve complicated problems. So I'm going to stop here now. One thing that I just want to add, and I think I mentioned it last time, is you guys, like, all we talk about are hacks, right? All those things, they help us get to the goals faster, work around our brain's capacity of lack of capacity to do certain things, understand our body limitations. But I believe that there is something more there than just like instincts. There is the sense of purpose in what you're doing, gives you a lot of energy and power that you still do not quite understand. And what I've learned is that doing things that you find meaningful, doing things that you see that resonates with other people, it just changes the game and gives you a lot. I was on the phone with some lawyers, the company lawyers, before I came here. I felt terrible. Like I talked to my boyfriend Steve before coming here because I was just so low. But I came here and I was so excited to see that all of you came today. And that I get to share something that I find valuable in my life and hopefully you will find valuable in yours. And I feel wonderful now. There is no fundamental survival mechanism here that pushes me to do that and feel that. But it somehow works. And I highly encourage you to find those things because they're a great source of energy, which I don't know how to explain, but who cares? Find those meaningful things. Find people who help you find that and sync with them. And I think you'll be able to achieve much bigger goals, much more interesting goals, much more valuable goals than just moving from a one-bedroom apartment to a three-bedroom house in the middle of Silicon Valley. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kasia. Thank you so much. And to make your life even brighter, I can tell that, of course, I was present at the first talk, and I gave it a try, and I tried to implement some of the things you basically shared, such as mega focus. And then when I was starting my day, I started like doing before going to the lunch break. It was like from 8:30 to 12:30. And then basically it's 3 hours work day because the rest it's like you are still at work, but it's not real work because you are answering tourist emails. You are following up on the meetings. You are doing a lot of things, but if I have to focus, I'm trying to do this power focus time, and it helps. And I wanted to tell you another two things that how to implement what you just said. I have Fitbit, and there are a lot of things like Fitbit. So it's linked to my phone. So if I put my phone away to my purse at my work, I'm not constantly checking at it. But I have my children at school and I have my elderly parents, and sometimes they need help, and this stresses me out. So if they call, I can see the call here, Fitbit. So if you have Apple phone, you can sync and you can have it on, like it's ringing. So you can know about that, and it helps as well. And the third thing is, how many of you at your work have some employee support kind of? Did you hear about it? So yeah. So some of the companies they do have wellness program, and wellness programs they have coaches. In one of my workplaces, previous one, we had the wellness, and it was one lady, and she was calling me once a month, and she said, like, what time am I going to sleep? And she was talking about goals, And she said, oh, you're going to sleep, let's do one. Like on Sundays, can you go to sleep before 12? Like it was looking so easy, but it was not easy. And she was calling me month by month. And then she was asking me, like, did you accomplish this goal? Because the coach will work with you on your goals, but sometimes they're as simple as that, and it's not so easy. And then you become sick. You already have done for those of you who came here for the first time that you allocated this evening to and to listen to Katya. And this is already the first step you did. So move the baby, like take the smallest step. You already took big step. You allocated the time, the entire evening, to come here, right? So now I'm going to give you announcement. So first of all, thank you. Thank you, JCC. Thank you, JCC. Thank you for Ella standing up, right? And presenting it because it's not so easy to stand up here, right? Like, right? Next time you can try. Talk to us and say, I want to talk and to present a speaker. Try it. And thanks to Rita going out of her comfort zone. She hates public speaking for now. She's going to love it, I know. And thank you for volunteers who came, Alona and Tanya and Ega and Irina. Who else? Who else? And gentlemen, I thank you so much. So it was a crew who set up everything here. So about the announcement, we are trying to cook some interesting events for you. And soon we are going for summer vacations. We are going to travel. So there will be an event in Delhi City, because there are some people who are living up there and they have a trouble to come after work, after traffic. So there is a company called Genesis. Right. Yeah, Oksana will talk like a couple of minutes about that. So this is an event. This is an event in Dallas City from the company. And if you have friends in San Francisco, so they can come there and to meet, to learn about our groups and to hang out and to listen the speakers. You're putting together wonderful panel. Another thing Ala is cooking is Netflix event. So we don't have the dates yet, but we are cooking. We had something with Google, but it didn't go as fast as we wanted, but we are trying. And there is another thing that we are cooking interactive event. It's kind of very interesting thing. We never tried it before. It's kind of the role play game where we are going to touch very, very sensitive issue and very sensitive subject in Silicon Valley. It's called basically the melting pot, or it's called Is the Silicon Valley. Okay, notice the elephant in the room. Fine. So we are inviting expert Angelica. She wrote a book about the cultures. As you know, more than 50% of Silicon Valley startups, they were founded by immigrants. But it's not only immigrants from one place. We are talking about tens of places that basically have a lot of presence here. And we have, of course, our groups, and we have different cultures that meet at the same workplace. And everyone has to get a job, but every culture or every kind of educational background has different approaches for the same things, for job search, for the job itself, for family, for the balance, for everything. So we wanted to have this role play and discussion about that, and we are inviting the speakers, but you will participate as well. So you will get to talk a little bit and to get into the shoes of other cultures and the difference between the culture, between women, between men, and you will be a player. So you don't know what group you will be representing, but try it. Okay. What did I miss?
We can share the microphone if someone is hiring or looking for a job. You can try the microphone here today.
Yes.
For a few seconds in the mouth.
Yes. So we are okay. So in a minute, if you are hiring or looking for a job, can you raise your hand? Okay, come on here. Yes, you have to come on.
Okay, I'm just looking for a job, guys. Okay, my name is Marina Borsigan. So I'm working at Google currently, and I really want to. Okay, the main issue is the salary, of course. Like, I really need to make more money to survive here. So, but my problem, I do so many things which I really love to do, and they distract me from what I really need to do to get another job. So,
What kind of
as I know, my only ways right now from all my friends, is the QA and manual tester or like automation tester. So that's what I heard.
What kind of QA?
Just quality assurance, software quality assurance, mostly. Yeah.
Mobile,
Oh yeah, it's either apps or web. I know.
You know
So.
who you talk to about this one? Mobile or okay, director maybe. Okay.
Alright. So yeah, that's I think.
Great, thank you for coming up. So, good luck. And, yes, Karen.
My name is Karen. I work at Broadcom. We have about one woman for every 100 men, and looking to hire a little bit more to make it equal. Our product management team looking for two job positions. Really good, really good salaries. Really good work-life balance. We're located on. Zanker, Montague, North San Jose, really easy to.
I know who you
I live in France.
Yeah, and the boss has a really nice Scottish accent. I think the boss is.
What kind of company? What position?
Product management positions. So also, of course, our Facebook group, so make the tag opportunity or job opportunity and please share. And also, if your company might have referral bonus. And I made a research at my company. We had a small opening of data analysts. There were 890 candidates. And then I just downloaded the database, and then I made some research on my spare time. And I found that if you come with referrals from someone who works in the company, 69% that someone will call you or just respond, you will have 69%. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you are just going and submitting your resume, and again, I remind again and again, referral is not the same as recommendation. It's okay to ask for referral because recommendation is when you know the person. If you refer someone from our group, you can say, yes, I am a part of the networking group of women in technology. I did not work with this person, but I want to refer. It doesn't mean that you recommend, but at least you have a very statistically high chance to change the life of this person. And it's okay, right? But statistically, you can do amazing things, right? And sometimes they give referral bonuses. You are not responsible kind of for the performance unless you recommend. But if you are upfront, so just help each other, right?
I'll announce it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
We have another 4 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'll be quick. So I don't know if we have electrical engineers in this group, or if you know many electrical engineers. I'm at Cisco with the data center networking team, and I have 12 open positions now in San Jose, including the software SDK engineers and ASIC design engineers and design unification, and also the timing. So pretty much almost anything in electrical engineering. So reach out to me
Thank you.
Thank you. It's really great. I can tell you that we partnered with a group that came up from Silo. We have our partners. They have kind of website and application, Silo, like Silo, SILO .co, not com, .co. And then we know the founder of this wonderful community. We have our small community there as well, and it's kind of virtual network, and you can ask questions like, I'm looking to expand to field of biotechnology. I could buy a coffee for someone who can just give some expertise. So you can talk to people. And then they started kind of program to they kind of employment program or referral also program because they have connections with the companies. And then we're trying to partner up with them. And then if you're looking for a job, I can refer you directly to this program. So it's just increases statistical chance. So with this program, the chances to be even seen or heard or get any response is higher. So Oksana, talk about the perspective event.
Speaking of public speaking, I did not expect to make an announcement today, but so I live in San Bruno, and Genesis, it's a company located in Daly City, and a friend of mine, he's the CTO of this company. When I told him that I'm part of this group, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so excited! I would like to support women. How about we make an event at Genesis? I can do presentation. We can find a woman who will do a presentation, and then someone from HR as well." And I said, "Well, I guess that would be just great." So the only possible problem that we can see right now, that maybe it would be hard to travel to the city, but we have a lot of members of this group who lives in San Francisco. So we're going to do this event. We're planning to do this event, and as of right now, we just want to see how many people are interested, and we hope we're gonna get a lot of interest. And I think that maybe in April, probably May. Just look for the announcement and event announcement. Yes. And speaking of, I'm the one who is looking for a job right now as well. So I just have my contract with Wells Fargo just ended recently, and I'm a QA, systems QA analyst.
So now, we have the next thing. So we are going to open to Q&A, and downstairs, our partner organization, Ambar, they are having an event as well. And after the Q&A, we're all invited to go down and to hang out there as well between ourselves and with Ambar people. And also, we met Eugene, who organizes Что, где, когда. Hold on. He got some flyers. I can put it on the table. So he said that he is welcoming a group of 10 women to make a team to be part of the contest. Okay, and this will happen in May in San Francisco. So
That's what I need. I die all the time.
before you go, so we want to take picture before you run away after the Q&A. So don't run away, we will try to put us together. Okay?
Oh, I will be there.
I guess this one is done.
Sana was the first one, hold on. She was doing a lot of volunteering job to organize the events.
Well, I have a question for Katia. So impressive speech. Thank you so much for coming here. And I'm just wondering, when you were a student, how did you survive your schedule and having almost 100 units at the same time
I still
and
don't.
doing your research and whatever you were doing? How did you survive? Was it just curious?
Yeah, I'm gonna take. Can you hear me fine like this?
Yeah.
Do I need a
Yeah.
microphone? Well, I have a loud voice. So yeah, I actually that's a very good question. It's wow, I love this video. It's really flattering. It's just my skirt. So yeah, basically one skill, which I didn't mention today, interestingly. Learn to say no. It's a very, very important thing. You just have to say no to 70% of things, but it doesn't work. It doesn't turn on. I'm sorry. So learn to say no to lots of I think they can hear me really well. So that's a really big deal. It's probably the top thing that I learned very quickly. And for a perfectionist like me, it was a very difficult thing to acknowledge because like I want my A+. I don't want A, I want A+, and it's just like it's ridiculous. Like growing up, I was like straight A, all of that stuff until I got into school for gifted kids, and then I got a moment of like some B's, and then I went straight A's. But at MIT, I actually I had several B's. So like, but then no, like it got worse later on. I also after MIT. I was also doing a concurrence in data science stuff, and I actually got some C's there. My GPA was like really terrible. I know it may sound kind of funny to you, but like for me, it was such a big deal. It was like I remember crying when I was getting B's, and just learning how to say, look, I have a company to run. I have people I need to hire. I have investors that I need to attract. And yes, I can get B or I can get A. Can I invest time? What I can lose and what I can win. And this is a very difficult question to ask yourself. And it's good to learn that very early on. Nobody teaches that for some reason. You have a to-do list and you just try to get everything off your to-do list. But many people forget that in order to get things off to-do list, you don't necessarily have to do them. You just scratch them off to-do list without doing it. It's the fastest way of doing them. So helped. Yeah. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi,
My name is Julia. Yes, I've worked that before.
Yes, we do.
So for anyone who doesn't know me, I do run Women in Big Data Meetup. So if you're interested in big data, come to Big Data Meetup. We are planning a mentoring event for April and stuff like that. But my question is not about big data. I find it really frustrating when I organize events that women come, they listen, they get inspired, they're like, oh my God, this is an amazing speech. She told us so much stuff that I can implement. They go home, they feel good about it, they wake up the next morning, they do shit. They don't do anything. And then they come later, 1 month later, and they say, oh my God, I want to listen to an inspiring person and learn something new, and then maybe I go home and do it, and they don't do anything. How do you change it, and what advice would you give to women here so that they at least do one thing instead of doing nothing?
That is an amazing question, Yulia. And I call it Tony Robbins effect. You know, when you're like, spend a ton of money, there is a guy who has amazing charisma, and he jumps in front of you for like 12 hours, and you're like, oh my God. And then you go back home like, yeah, success has to be successful, time management should be efficient, I should go do big things. Now what? I said, start very small. From all the list of things that you've learned today, pick just one and limit yourself to this one thing. Limit, don't allow yourself to implement more things, even if you think you can do two. Treat it like a candy. You know, each experiment is a candy. You know, you can't have them all right away, and hopefully it helps. You know, just very, very small. Pick one little thing. Just commit to it today. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow, you know, the Tony Robbins effect will blow off. And, you know, there are different commitment devices. There is also a thing called commitment device when you just there are apps where you put some money in and deposit if you don't fulfill it. You know, it goes into charity that you hate. So I'm not joking. It's actually the way it works. And I also have me being a girl in a material world, I have to do these things. So I have a spreadsheet and all the challenging things that are kind of causing some resistance that I find difficult to implement, I have point systems. So if I do it throughout the day, the more complex it is and the more resistance it has, the more points it gets. Each point is $1 I can spend in dresses. And I have like a balance, so I like put how much I earned that day. And then, I also have like a spend column. So it kind of like balances it out. And typically I have like a list of things I have in mind that I want to buy. And I save on those things for a couple of weeks, earning points for different activities. So it's simple Google spreadsheet. I'm not going to show it to you, but it does exist. And it could be simple activities like that you avoid doing, like flossing. People hate doing that. Give yourself $3 each day for doing this. Like, it might be a very expensive flossing activity, but it sticks, and eventually you want to buy yourself some nice things, and it's a good way of stimulating some good stuff. So that also could be. But then you will start like, okay, now I want to implement 25 things because I really love this person. It's $500, and so be careful with this system. But as you add new things, and also works great for big projects that are very boring. Like for me, like for example, some legal stuff. I hate legal paperwork. It's just my boyfriend is a lawyer, helps a lot. Just hate it all, and so I try to avoid it as much as I can, but sometimes I can't because, as an executive in a company, I have to deal with those things sometimes. And those types of projects, because they just are so taxing on me, I give them extra points. And they no longer feel so bad. Like I got this dress, like a while ago on one of those points. So
Yeah.
Sweetens the pill.
Hi, my name is Anastasia. I think my question is kind of similar to the first one. So, job I have is like how to stay motivated on this journey, because like we're gonna fail on this, like developing habits, etc. And like where to get this like motivation to continue and not to lose, like not stop believing in yourself. I guess this is the hardest part.
So it's actually a very loaded question. First part, where to find motivation? Motivation is not a thing that can be pumped in you. You can like look around, here's my motivation. No, it's not how it works. You have to, the thing that you're doing has to have meaning, and it has to resonate with you, actually resonate with you. And there are things like, I don't want to like offend anyone, but like when the key motivating factor is money, the motivation will wear off very quickly. Because it's like the saturation of that happens very quickly. So be careful with this type of motivation. It's important in the beginning, but once you get to more or less comfortable lifestyle, no longer works, or works really bad and like diminishing returns. So finding motivation is about finding yourself, and that's why your question is so loaded, because how many times you were sitting there with yourself trying to think of what do you actually like? What do you actually want? What do you actually enjoy? Not what you do and should do tomorrow, and groceries and report and presentation next week, and then travel plans, Tahoe, might be traffic, but actually like sit down with yourself and ask those questions. Very, very, very rarely we spend this time with ourselves because it's scary. Our brain has all kinds of suggestions that might be very uncomfortable, and you just don't want to deal with it. So this I love. You will lose yourself. You will lose yourself. You will go in the wrong path, and you will lose yourself. And this is just for me fascinating. Like all atoms of our body, like pretty much all are being replaced within like 10 or 12 years. So we're kind of losing ourselves in the process, like shedding a little bit. But more than that, again, because of our very fluid nature of our brain, we are losing and finding ourselves every single sentence, every single experience. So don't be afraid of trying things that are not yours, because there's no such thing as your thing, because you are very much changing object. And that also brings another point, that there is no destination. motivation ends when people believe that there is destination, because once they reach the destination, then ta-da, like, it's like, I remember I was very frustrated when I loved Nintendo game as a kid. I couldn't really play it because I was too nervous about the character, because it eventually dies. There were actually, you had to, like Mario, remember Mario? You have to eat mushrooms. That's why I was calling mushroom. So you eat mushroom, you get bigger. And so I remember I was like, my sister was playing it for me. I was watching because I was too nervous. And once it was so much struggle to get to the final, to the end of it. And then the game was over. He found the stupid princess that was on the other castle. And I was like, now what? And it was just so frustrating because it was the only game that I really liked. There was also Little Mermaid, and we never finished it. But it was just very frustrating because now what? And I think a lot of people in life who overemphasize the goal versus the journey, they have this like kind of crisis where they, okay, now I have a house, now I have a beautiful wife, now I have 2 lovely kids. Now what? Like all this society suggested, goals they're accomplished. I've never asked myself what mine are. Now what? So in order to find motivation, you have to sit down with yourself from time to time and just answer questions. I can give you practical advice on that. I call it morning pages. And honestly, I skip it sometimes, but it's one of the best things that I do. And if I do it, my day feels better. For like 10 minutes, I write down 2 pages on a piece of paper. I usually shred it right away so that nobody sees it unless there are some sparkles, so usually nothing. But basically the idea is that you offload everything you have in your brain in the morning. And it's just kind of like a stream, and do not type it. You have to write it so that you have to pace yourself, and also not get distracted. Just piece of paper, cup of tea, and a pen, and just A4 letter size piece of paper, 2 sides, and just pour everything you have there, jot it down. Kind of like helps you connect with whatever is happening. If you have nothing to write, say, I don't know what to write, I have nothing to write, have absolutely no ideas. I think this friend at work is actually not a friend, and just everything you have in mind. But like after like some several lines of bullshit, you get to the point of some interesting thoughts, ideas. It's a form of meditation, but it's a little bit easier to keep track of that, because with your thoughts, you can go far away super quickly. When you write, because it slows you down, it keeps you on track a little bit longer. So it really helps me. It really helps me. But yeah, just schedule some time with yourself. It's it's not the best person you may ever met, but it's decent usually. Have something in common, and just talk.
If I might share, like, for example, what happens me to stay motivated, right? So what I do, things that I know about myself, ever since I was a child, I was very competitive. The moment somebody challenges me to achieve something, I would just go and beat them up, and because of that, so sometimes, here, especially in US, you're kind of all alone, and you have to establish yourself, and you're kind of, you don't have that team environment, right? So I would go and challenge my girlfriend or challenge my husband, or just find somebody who I can compete with, and that keeps me extremely motivated. So, and that's something that I know about myself. And
I would dare to disagree with you. I would dare to disagree with you because I'm also a very competitive person. And what usually happens is that, if somebody would approach me previously and say, I bet you can't do that. And I'll be like, hell no, I can do it. And I will do something that I really don't need to do.
No.
And
I mean,
something
it has to be something that I need to do.
How can they?
I already know
So you have to tell them, like, okay, so there is this internal motivation I have. Now go ahead and challenge me. And they go,
yeah.
Now
I would find somebody who would team up with me, and like we'll take that challenge together. And that's why, people, like, for example, if somebody has a goal, I don't know, lose weight, or get that certification done, like, then you build a study group, right? You study together, you challenge each other, you support each other, you kind of keep each other honest, and that's kind of. And then, for example, with my husband, so knowing that
Like he is quite a you know, person, who's concerned about money, right? He's a married to Bulgarian, and he's not as generous, in a sense of a Russian. Like if he spends a lot of money, that's like. So I married a guy who's actually, he's very responsible with the money, right? And so he, at the beginning of our relationship, he used to do, like handyman stuff around the house, and I was just saying, well, my dad was doing it, like any Russian guy would do that. And he's like, well, I'm a white collar worker, right? So I found a way to motivate him. I just said, well, what about, I'm gonna pay you. Yeah, I'm gonna write up a check for everything you do, like, so that I don't have to pay to a handyman or ask somebody to come. And interestingly enough, I mean, he liked the idea so much. So, and like every time he was like, look, I've done this, do you like it? I said, like, how much did I earn? I was like, okay, give me the checkbook. And so I would write up a check, from our joint account, right? And it was so ridiculous to the point that like the bank was, wondering, what, like, we always needed new checkbooks, but it worked with him. And like, we're adults, right? Like you think, well, it only works on children, and actually it does work, on you too. You just have to find, what, drives you, what kind of like, yeah, and it's kind of a part of gamification. You make it a game, right? Like, because then my husband loved it so much, he started sharing it with with his friends because he was proud. And like now
I made
and I was
24 bucks today.
I literally and started like saying, okay, so now like you're officially certified as a plumber, or like you honey, now you're officially certified as an electrician. And like at some point, he went to the point that I certified him as a gardener. So, and he's very proud of that. I mean, it's funny, we're adults, but we still need something that makes us kind of go and do it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Games do in fact work, and they work like magic, and they work in situations that are super challenging. There was a story, I don't remember the name of the guy, but he was a pretty famous a mountain climber who fell off a rock, and he was able to get to the nearest camp with a broken leg and like most of his body really like damaged by creating a game for himself. Can I get to the next rock within 3 minutes? And he will time himself, and he will make it a game so that through the pain he could get set himself a small challenge. And small is again a very small, a very important thing here. But gamification does work. I try to rely when designing gamification. I really like doing it like personally because I like being self-sufficient in my tricks with my brain. But if you can find a person who can be part of it, that is also very, very helpful. Thank you for sharing this time.
So here. Hi guys, thank you so much. My name is Alina, and I really appreciate your speech today. I think for me it's really, really useful. And I already bought your Cosmos, like maybe 6 months ago, but I didn't start it yet. And I think I had to go to that DAO to start it finally. I hope it will tomorrow. And it will be my first time. So, can you share please something like how I can get energy in the nighttime to do something for myself? Let's say like I wake up at 7 a.m. I'm get ready my son, drop him at school. After that I go to home, get ready me at work. After that I come back at 8 p.m. Spending like 1 hour with my son, checking his homework, getting him to sleep. And after that at 9:30 finally I have that like 1.5 hours to get my work done. Let's say I have my project, or I have to learn something for my career, right? But after 9:30, you would like to get like glass of wine or watch some, Candy Club or something like that. Like you completely don't have energy or motivation. But that motivation you had like during the day, even like before home, you were thinking like, okay, I will do that. I will do that today. But after that, you're not going to do that. So can you share please some tips how finally at least 30 minutes to do that? How to motivate yourself with my energy and something? Because for me, like I will give myself like $3, like it will not work. I'm very okay with salary in Silicon Valley. $3 will not work for me. So,
Yeah, so it's not about $3, it's about permission to buy something. So it's like you can either permit. But I hear your question, and it's a very good one. And I think it goes back to the idea of energy. Time, you can allocate time, but you have to also have energy. So improving your sleep, improving your emotional, like removing emotional factors from your life. We didn't have much time to talk about it, but like, reading newspapers with all the terrible things that they write there, it just drains your energy. So just saving the battery. Another thing that you can try to do is, shift your schedule a little bit. If you are not functional in the evening and you can't do anything, why don't you wake up at 5:30 and do those things in the morning instead and go to bed earlier? That is also an option, and for a lot of people, it's a better option. I know that, for example, I can't write, like I started writing, and I can't write in the evening. I just can't. I can consume information. I cannot create data. Yeah, you have to, like, again, it's not about finding motivation. Ta-da, here's a magic recipe. Now you have time, and now you have energy at night. No, you can either create more energy by resting more. You can use it less by avoiding things that drain your energy, or you can move things around. So in the evening, you're doing more routine things, and in the morning, you're doing things that require more concentration and creativity. That's all you have. I'm gonna get a round of applause after each question. That's amazing. I'm gonna stay here all night.
Yeah, thank you for the speech and second time to your event, and I'm very enjoying it. So my question is about willpower, because I know that willpower is like the main ingredient in success. Because this marshmallow experiment, everyone's know about it, and I know that like 20, 30 years later, these researchers, they contacted these children, and they
Do
saw
you guys
that.
know what marshmallow experience is?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can quickly say what it is.
Yeah.
Basically, 5-year-old kid in the room with one marshmallow. They say, don't eat marshmallow. If you don't eat it for the next few minutes, I'll come back and give you 2 marshmallows. Some kid eat them right away. Some suffer for some minutes and eat it right away. And some of them wait and actually get 2 marshmallows. And then they contact the kids 20 years later and see how they perform in life.
Yeah, and these kids that eat marshmallow right away, they didn't have success in their life. And the kids, not as much.
Drug addicts.
Some of them are drug addicts. Yeah. And the kids who waited for the second marshmallow, they had a success in life. And it's actually didn't matter like what education they had and even what IQ they had. The willpower was the main ingredient in order to get the success in life. So, and I wanted to ask, like maybe some tips how to train the willpower, and also maybe I don't know some books that actually teach you how to train this willpower.
I'm very, very sorry about what I just did. I just realized that
It's
I
okay.
told my boyfriend to pick me up at this time and I have to cancel it. So I just like had a little mini panic attack, but I'm good at multitasking, as I mentioned earlier. So how to train willpower, because this is such an important element of your success in life. Willpower trained as a muscle. The best way to train willpower, believe it or not, is meditation. Because it is a way for you to put your focus back to the same thing, breathing, once and once again. So it's like very good like abs workout in a way, but for your brain. So willpower is your capacity to control your behavior, including behavior that happens subconsciously, impulsive behavior, and the same is meditation. Meditation is when you are controlling your thinking by bringing the focus to the same subconscious behavior. So I was very skeptical about meditation. I was skeptical about everything, as you probably can guess. But because it's like, for me, it was like, okay, I have to like light all these aromatic candles, all over the place and like do this and like didn't like the idea. When I learned that meditation can be done, anywhere, you can be standing, sitting, you can have eyes open. All you have to do is to learn to bring focus to the same thing, and that is exactly what willpower is being able to control your behavior, in particular your subconscious behavior. So yeah, 3 breaths today, 4 breaths tomorrow, a minute in 2 months from now. Try to bring it to like 10 minutes. Very difficult to meditate.
If you want a
for someone.
recommendation on a book or like a video, what I found very useful was if you search for willpower, Kelly McGonigal. She has a book called Willpower Instinct,
Yeah,
and she
it's a
has
good
a
one.
TED Talk, and like you can also read like a 4-minute summary of the book on like 4-minute summary books if you don't want to read the whole book. But her principles of like, I think she splits it into I will, I want, and I don't. Like types of like things that you can do. I actually found it really helpful, and I think her TED Talk was maybe like 20 minutes. So I would recommend finding her. So Kelly McGonigal, Willpower Instinct. Yeah, MC Gonigal, like Irish last name. Yeah.
Yes, I have to really apologize, but I have 5 more minutes because apparently I canceled too late. So just out of love for this person who really handles me, I will keep it to 5 minutes. So 2 more questions.
Here, question there, so we will.
And before we wrap up, I have a Facebook account and an Instagram account, which is Katerina Lengold. So just my name altogether, and I always respond to direct messages, and I post a lot of stuff there. So yeah, please feel free. Like, we don't have to discuss everything today, and I give some talks from time to time, and either post videos of them or post, you can participate in them. All right. I'm very sorry that I kind of wasn't aware that this was happening, but I'm a planning guru, so I'm just doing all things perfectly, and this is a great example of it.
Hi, Katerina. I'm very excited about the topic, and thank you very much for such an insightful talk. My question would be about sugar. I've been doing some research for a while about how bad sugar is and how it can affect our body, our brain, and our emotions. And actually, I'm planning to write a book about that. And my question would be, like, why didn't you quit sugar at all completely, knowing all the bad effects of sugar, knowing that it's even worse than cocaine, and I'm trying to have a refined sugar-free diet completely. It's so hard, but I feel so powerful and so energetic, and my life literally changed the day I stopped eating sugar at all. So my question would be like,
why not 0?
Yeah.
Well, first thing, as I said, you can't change things like this. That it will just drain your willpower right away. Second thing, I don't do any refined sugars, but I'm talking about low carbs. And even if you eat almonds, they still have some carbs in them, even though most of it is not carbs. You bringing carbs to 0, actually bringing yourself to ketonic state, ketosis, is pretty challenging. And I think it's a little bit too extreme for me. I try to stay away from extremes. So I certainly quit all refined sugars. I do not eat any pasta. I do not eat, obviously, any sweet things. So only natural sweeteners that are not sugar. So like stevia and erythritol, plant-derived erythritol. I do not eat flour. But I can still do like coconut flour, which has some carbs in it, but they're slow carbs. So I don't eat any rice. White rice is pretty much the same idea as plain sugar. So yeah, I have removed like very, very fast ones, but I can still eat this sweet potato, for example, a baked sweet potato, which is, if you want to do ketosis, it's not allowed, but I think, you shouldn't go that extreme. And also, I don't believe that those changes can be that drastic very quickly. And I've been just doing it for a year. Also, I'm not living alone, and my significant other would probably really hate me if I just force him to eat exclusively, food like this.
Do you have the goals that you think what my 5, 10 years goals are like, or where do I see myself in 10 years from now, or like say too much?
Yeah, I stopped setting up long-term goals. The only long-term goal related thing that I have today is related to like family planning, because there are certain physiological constraints that are involved there. So that part I have like planned out for quite long term. But everything else in terms of career, hobbies, I just want to see what I become. And when I become that, I will decide what I want to do. And just a year and a half ago, on social media, my thoughts and ideas, spending evenings, sharing things with people, I would feel like that was weird and like just wasteful. But today I feel so much gratitude for being able to do that and having something to share. So why would I plan that? Let's wrap it up here. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much.
If you can, in 20 seconds, gather here to have a picture with Katya. This is number one. Number two, Zhenya is here, right there. Zhenya, come here. He will talk about like что ты когда. He can talk after Katya will leave. So, Zhenya, can you take our picture then before you talk? Yeah, we can have. Yeah, let's stand up here. We are going to stand up right here. We're going to move this thing.
Should we stand in front of it?
Yeah, just stand here.